Welcome to Hustle and Pro Season 2, talking sports in Frisco from youth to pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Welcome back to Hustle and Pro. So we are picking up our conversation again, talking about The Last Dance, ESPN's docu-series on Chicago Bulls. So we finished episode 1 and 2 last episode, and we're going to go ahead and jump in, talking episode 3. We are still talking with Chad Brown of the Texas Legends and Fred Hammond, who's here in Frisco, owns a local business, Countdown to Escape, here down on Main Street. So we're going to jump into episode 3, which is, I kind of have noted as the Rodman episode, right? So, which is a kind of a loaded episode, I guess you could say. So we see his, sort of his background, like his tough life on the streets and how he was able to kind of stay out of trouble. Even he talked about like he was hanging out with drug dealers and this and that. But it also explained how he said he kind of craved the pain and wanted to like feel that on the court, I guess, which is sort of why he is known for his physicality. Chad, I'm curious from your perspective, because you are a presence on the court. I mean, your nickname is the Beast, right? So as that person who's like known for blocking shots and being physical, what'd you think when you were watching that part on the Rodman episode?
Well, honestly, I think that was like one of my favorite parts of the documentary is the Dennis Rodman, because you know, everybody knows Jordan, everybody knows Pippen, but you know, a lot of like the underdog guys, like the Rodmans and the Ben Wallaces of the basketball world, doesn't really get the full recognition. So it was good to, you know, kind of see, you know, his background, you know, how his mindset changed in the basketball world to, you know, do what he does on the court. And you know, everybody has a different personality and everything, but one thing you can say about him is that, you know, when he stepped on the court, you know, he left it all out there. You know, he left it all out on the table, and you know, he was the heart and soul of those guys' team, man.
It kind of makes you wonder, though, do you have to have a little bit of crazy in you, though, to like sacrifice your body like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can say from experience, you know, you just have to. Like I say, I think it's just a mindset, honestly. It's a mindset you have to have where, you know, you don't mind, you know, getting a couple bruises, a couple scars and things like that, because, you know, it's all about winning and that's who you are as a person. And, you know, like you say, you have to be a little crazy, have a little mindset of doing those little dirty works. So,
yeah. So, and then they showed us a lot about how he needed his time off, right, to relax. And so, you know, it didn't really make it look like his teammates were that bothered by it. Even I think Michael was like kind of understood. I think he had to go fetch him one time to get him back, right? He didn't come back behind his curfew or something. Can you know, I think we talked about this a little bit last time, but I can't imagine that today. He would just get roasted by social media if you're just kind of MIA and you have to take a break in mid-season. Like, we roast athletes off-season nowadays, right? So if y'all have any thoughts on that.
I mean, I think the genius of Phil Jackson was that he knew Dennis Rodman had to be on the team to win, and he would almost let him do and be as crazy as he needed to be to let the formula play out. And I think that's really a credit to Phil Jackson. Now, the fact that he let him go past the curfew and past the vacation agreement and sends Jordan out there to get him is also genius, because, you know, he's like sending the leader back out to get him, brings him home, doesn't punish him. You know, they all get into practice again and they're going to work out even harder. And Dennis goes just as hard as he would if he wasn't on vacation, which is just so anti-team and so anti-establishment. That's what Phil Jackson did, is he allowed them to be themselves and kept them together, and it won his championship.
Yeah. Hold that thought on Phil, because I want to talk about that in a second on the next piece. Before we move off to the next episode, though, in this episode, they started showing us what I thought was cool. One of my favorite things about this whole series, we got to see that shot in '89, the kind of the famous shot, and how they built up leading up to like the ends of these games.
Right.
And I think this one kind of documented the final push and Jordan having to take over, which we saw on repeat a lot of the times. But that's the stuff, like, I don't remember the details. Maybe y'all do. Well, you don't, Chad. I don't even know if you were born yet.
Yeah, I wasn't around that time.
Right. You don't remember the details. So this might have been even cooler for you. And Fred, you might remember. But I mean, I remember Jordan as a whole. And I remember my memories are like dunk contests and kind of more unique things. I couldn't tell you, what time was left on the clock when he was making this or that shot in a certain game. So that was cool for me to be able to go back and let them build up the last 5-7 minutes or something of a game and watch those possessions and watch really like document how he had to take over, right?
Right.
It was almost kind of built like that. Like, let's just play to this point and get to 5 minutes, and Michael's going to do his thing. He's going to go to the free throw line. He's going to shoot a jump shot. He's going to do whatever it takes to win. And it was just played out that way almost all the time.
So, Chad, was that your first time seeing some of those kind of packaged up, like, few minutes of some of these playoff pushes, or had you already known some of that?
So I've already done a lot of research about the Bulls back in the 1990s, because I'm actually a really huge Dennis Rodman fan. I watched a lot of film on him, and so I watched a lot of those games already. So I feel like these episodes kind of made me look at it as, how it all came together. I was more watching film on it, but I didn't see the locker room parts, the media parts. I didn't see all of that, that came with it. The
story behind the X's and O's, yeah.
Right, exactly. Correct. So, like I said, I watched a lot of film on those guys, but, it's just it's a lot better when you can, look at it like really detailed, off the court as well.
Yeah, I love that part. Okay, so Fred, you brought up the Phil Jackson thing. So let's kind of slide into Last Dance episode 4, which is really Phil and talks about Magic too. But so you talked about Phil and how he sort of like connected and identified with. So part of that is, I think he said that he felt connected to people like Rodman because he was a physical defender too. And then I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know all the background about Phil Jackson with his Native American history and like how he used that to kind of like, that's sort of his philosophy and how he used that to motivate as a coach. So I don't know, talk about that. Like, I don't know if you guys already knew that or not, but how much that played into how he connected with people and how he let people have, a bit of a long leash sometimes to let them be them.
Yeah, I mean, there's several references to Phil letting people do things that are contrary to a team. When Scotty wouldn't come in the game for the final shot and Kukoc hits it, he lets that go and keeps him on the team. He lets Dennis be Dennis and wear different color hair and earrings and go out to Vegas with Carmen Electra. And I don't know how the Native American thing all tied in, but it was sort of like this inner peace that he had, and he could relate to each person exactly the way they needed to and keep it together as a team, which I think is really just genius. And it really probably doesn't work without that. And Michael loved him too.
Yeah. I mean, Chad, do you feel that with all the coaches you've had? Like, is it critical that a coach has to have that flexibility and like be able to kind of just be open-minded about every individual player's needs and personality?
Well, absolutely. I definitely feel like, like you all said, I feel like personalities, everybody has different personalities, and as a coach, I've never been a coach or anything like that, but just being around, great coaches and things, I know that the coaches that I've had in the past have all been able to connect with their players, and we all have different personality. Each player has different personality. You have the Dennis Rodman personality, you have the Jordan personality, you have the Pippen personality. You have different personalities. So, as a coach, I feel like Phil Jackson did a great job to work with all of his guys. He worked with all of his guys. He understood where they come from. He understood, what they needed, just how to relate with those guys, and he did a really good job being able to do that. And to be a successful team, your coach has to have that personal relationship with each player. So I feel like he did a great job with that.
Yeah. I can't wait for a 30 for 30 on Phil Jackson one day. It'll have to be a little while later, I guess. But I think that'll be fascinating just because, like, inside the mind of how he saw people, I don't know, maybe I was judging him prior to kind of knowing more about him, but I just didn't realize that was his angle. It's fascinating.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about this. Do you guys think the Pistons started a trend for bigger NBA guys?
I think they started a trend for a style of basketball, and the style was brutality and physical, and that did require bigger people like Lambeer and all the people that they had that could literally hurt you and scare you and change the style of basketball that you're accustomed to playing because of their physicality. So I think it was a style that was supported by physical athletes that maybe weren't the best basketball players, but they were intimidators and scary. And that changed people's mind when they're going down the lane and getting ready to, do something they normally do. They changed their game and gotten ahead of the other team.
Right. No, I totally agree. I definitely believe that the Pistons definitely changed the mindset of a lot of guys in the basketball world. Even Jordan, getting beat up by the Pistons each year and him making a conscious effort to be in the weight room saying, man, I got to get stronger. These guys are bullying me, man. And I can't take it. My body physically can't take it unless I get bigger. So
yeah, like it single-handedly affected him personally.
Yeah,
made him change his physicality. Like he had to change his body.
Yeah, he had to. I mean, it just they had the Jordan rules against him. And
no dunks.
No dunks. Everything was going to be earned from him, and he. He took offense to that. He was like, man, I got to get stronger. So I feel like, the Pistons, they definitely changed a lot of basketball players' mentality and perspective of the game that, it's a physical game. Even to this day, it's not as bad as it was, back in the 80s and 90s. But I can definitely say that, we still have those guys that are the bruisers and that, that you have to, when you play against them is that, hey, man, it's going to be a war, So they definitely changed a lot of basketball players' perspective.
Yeah, I think now it's almost kind of gone the other end of the spectrum where it's more about the fouls, the calls. I don't know, protect the players a little bit more. It's good for guys like you, I guess, that are out there playing. Here in the land of Dirk, there's been a lot of talk about that, like protecting these guys. And I like that. I think it was Jordan who said that, talked about like not whining about getting beat up out there back then. Sort of you just didn't complain about it and you just threw it and figured your way around it, I guess. Which I don't, as a fan, I can't stand the over complainer. The guy who asks for the call every time down the court or we're soccer people, Fred. Like, I can't stand when after you've come into a confrontation with somebody else, your first reaction is to look at the ref and ask for a call. Like, it's not what you're out there for. So I liked that they brought that up and that Jordan had to even say, like, you can't complain about the call. Like, play beyond that. Figure it out, right?
And exactly. Get in your head. Like, if you wanted to fight them, that's exactly what they wanted you to do. But
they wanted that. Yeah.
When Scotty took that hard hit and he got up, walked away, and I think one of them, like maybe it was Isaiah or somebody said, I knew they had us when he didn't react, and it was over. And it was like that was the sort of the tipping point from the bad boys to the new guys, and that was fascinating to me when he didn't react.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely true.
It shows a lot of restraint to not react. That's probably harder than somebody like me makes it sound.
Yeah.
Do you have a conscious effort, like when you're out there, to have to hold back and not, because you don't seem on the court, Chad, like you're always, complaining about calls. You stay pretty level-headed. Is that something you have to work at, or does it just?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it comes naturally for me because I'm naturally a physical player. So I feel like it comes natural for me that I don't really have to argue about calls. But at the same time, you got to work on it because, players going to try to get into your head, the excitement, the emotions all in the air. I feel like you just have to stay level, because guys are going to try to get under your skin. That's what they do, as basketball players. I try to get under guys' skin, stuff like that. So that's what we do, and it's the nature of the sport. So you just have to, be level-headed and just stay focused on the task, that's at hand.
How often are you fouling out of games, Chad?
Honestly, this season, I want to say I've only fouled out twice.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually did a really good job. I've learned how to I've learned when to foul and when not to foul, if that makes sense. Because you have to, as a player, you have to know your value on the court. And so I can't, especially, when our guys sometimes get called up and stuff, I have a bigger role and I have to play a lot more. So, I have to learn how to, know my value on the court. So I can't be out there just fouling. Sometimes I got to let things go. Sometimes they make it over me. But, like I said, you just have to know your value on the court.
Yeah, and being valuable, I mean, if you have to have those fouls, that's one thing, but you're not very valuable sitting on the bench, not able to play in the fourth quarter when your team actually needs you out there, right?
Yeah, exactly, yes.
All right, so we also, in this episode, we also saw some Lakers finals with Magic. My, I guess, overall question is, if you guys agree that we didn't see enough of Magic in this docuseries.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have seen a lot more of it. I mean, that was kind of the Jordan replaced Magic. He replaced Bird. I'd love to see that sort of build up and set up. But I felt the same way. Like, it wasn't enough.
I mean, I guess it's because this was about the Bulls and Jordan. But I don't know. I just kind of wanted to see a little more backstory. I mean, I guess it's maybe in their 10 hours of cutting and editing, they couldn't get more Magic in. So.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it was probably hard. I mean, but I agree with you. I wish I would have seen a little bit more Magic because, it's like Jordan, looked up to him, looked up to Bird. And, you want to hear their backgrounds a little bit too, like, how they approach the game and stuff like that and what Jordan had to look at, being in college, being in high school. So, it would have been nice to see a little bit more Magic, but, we got a chance to see him, with the Lakers a little bit, at the USA team. So
yeah,
we got a chance to see a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I did like when Magic, they had the practice on the Dream Team.
Yeah.
And he said, you better be Air Jordan right now because you're down by 6. And
yeah, that's nice.
And Magic throws the ball in the stand, and then they get on the bus and they go, everybody's tense. And he goes, well, I guess there's a new sheriff in town. And that was Magic passing the baton to Michael, really.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I'm glad they left that in. Yeah. Okay, so then that's a good transition to, though, on the flip side, episode 5, we see Kobe. So they kind of do, again, to me, not enough backstory, but we see like the beginning of like young Kobe and the start of what we know later is a strong relationship between the two. But man, didn't y'all want to see more diving into that story?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Any comments or thoughts on what we did see of Kobe or what we know? Like, I don't know a ton about their relationship after. I'm sure there's books and stories on it, or there will be more now. But like, do you guys know how their relationship went? Like, was Jordan like a mentor to him as he was coming up in the league, or did they become closer like later on when Jordan was done? Or what do y'all know about that?
Yeah, I think Jordan said. I think Kobe texted him a lot and asked him a lot of questions like, how do you do a fadeaway and this and that. I think Kobe desperately wanted to be better than Michael. He desperately wanted to be viewed like Michael, but I don't think he ever achieved that. I thought it was really interesting when they showed the All-Star game. You've got Michael and Kobe in there, and Michael's posting him up and fading away and hitting nothing but net, and he wins the MVP. And it was Michael's way of saying, I'm still the big dog here. You're pretty good, but you're not me yet.
Keep learning.
Yeah, keep learning. So it was a really cool little dynamic between the two.
Yeah, Chad, you're a Kobe guy, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts on any of that, or what you know about their relationship?
Well, I watched a lot of documentaries and read a lot of books on Kobe, and the biggest thing with him is that, he talked about Jordan so much. He said, man, look, he said, everything that you see from me, I got from Jordan. So, when you see me doing these moves and the championships I've won, I literally watched film on the 90s Bulls. I watched, his demeanor, his approach for the game. And he's I was watching this documentary. He was like, me and Jordan we have a great relationship, and everybody compares us to. And it was funny because he said that, me, I just wanted to win at basketball. He said Jordan wanted to win at anything possible. He didn't care what he did.
Quarters in the locker room, right? Like anything.
flipping quarters in the locker room, whether he's playing cards on the plane, whether he's playing golf with his guys. Like, he didn't want to lose. And, Kobe was, he said when he got into the league, Jordan kind of took him under his wing and was like, hey, man, these are steps in the approach you have to take in order to be great. And, just watching, their documentaries, it shows, the accolades shows, how they approach the game and why people compare them so much, because, they had a great relationship and they played similar, they definitely did.
Yeah. So like I said, wish there would have been more Kobe, and I don't know when this was all like wrapped and filmed. I mean, first of all, when I first heard this was even happening, I was like, how did they obviously thought ahead? They were filming this all this time. And it's like, I'm just fascinated at the release timing and just all of this. So I don't even know when these side interviews were done. But I wish there could have been more insight from Kobe's point of view. I'm sure there's stuff out there. I need to go search it up and like actually watch more on it, because this was just a tiny peek into it. But okay, let's talk about the shoes. So in this episode, they start talking about this Nike deal. We get to see how Michael was really reluctant. Big shoe deals it just wasn't at all what it is now, obviously.
Oh, for sure.
Really carved that out. But I just thought it was cool that his mama basically said, no, we're going to go, right? We're going, even though you don't want to go meet with these men, we're going to go, we're going to hear them out, see what they have to say. We got to see footage of him like going to Nike and hearing from the Nike guys. And so I think they said their goal was to sell $3 million in shoes. And then do you guys remember kind of what they ended up with that year?
Like 122 million the first year or something?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. 122, 23, something like that.
Yeah.
The first year. Like
year one. Like
year.
that's just one. And it's still
that's unique.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. There's another documentary out. I think it's AJ1 or AF1. I don't know. I don't know what the actual name of it is, but it's specifically about like the whole background with Jordans from like the 90s.
Oh, I've seen that. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, the legendary AJ1 or something like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about the shoes. Yeah.
I found it shortly after this, or maybe during the Last Dance was happening. And so it was like a whole nother dive into just the background and it's really more than just, I guess, Jordan, but like everything from culture, like how just everything shifted.
Yeah.
It's fascinating if you haven't seen it yet. I think AJ1, I think is what it was called.
But
it's cool. They talked to a lot of like hip hop guys and just like tons of guys and probably girls. I don't know. It's a guy thing, I think, about just what they remember and just the history of the shoe. But I also thought it was interesting that they paid Michael, I think $250,000 for that spokesman. I think they got him at quite a steal, right? Can you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Or what it turned out to be, yeah.
And Adidas couldn't afford it at the time. They didn't have the resources. I mean, can you imagine the guy that said, because Michael wanted Adidas, it sounded like, on the show. And imagine the guy that said, Michael, we can't afford. I mean, that's a billions and billions of dollar mistake.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Imagine that.
Yeah. So, Chad, are you a Jordan, like, shoe guy?
I have a couple of Jordans. I like the style. Definitely like, I love the player. I love what he did to the game. Just out of respect for him, I have a couple pair of Jordan shoes. I also like the style, like I said, as well. So,
yeah.
Even in that time, though, I felt like Jordan, he, getting all the accolades and the shoe deals and stuff like that, I felt like he was just so focused on basketball till he really didn't let the shoe game and the deals overwhelm him. It didn't really overwhelm him that much. A lot of players nowadays, you see younger guys and stuff getting these deals and stuff, and it's like, oh man, like everything is too much, and he didn't let that really overwhelm him because he knew it was just one thing about, and it was just about basketball. So, I felt like he handled it really well though, with the shoe deals and things like that.
Yeah, like when you say that, it reminds me, I guess when he was shooting Space Jam, instead of being kind of like gone and not available.
Right.
Basically said,
Amazing.
we'll just bring everybody to you. We'll build you this facility and everybody can come work out with you. And then it ended up being like an all-star game. He would have
it was amazing.
Work out with them.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
That was like, just shows you the guy, all he wanted to do was win and play basketball, and he knew everything else would take care of itself.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then the schedule that he had behind it, him having to wake up early in the morning, shoot all day, getting maybe an hour or two of rest, and then wanting to go at night to play pickup with the guys. It's like, man, that's a schedule, man. You have to be wired differently to be able to do those type of things, man.
Yeah.
So that's why.
That wasn't just your regular pickup with the guys. That was like he wasn't around.
All stars, yeah. I mean, guys that are completely all stars. You have to go and compete against those guys. And they want to compete as well. So it's like, man, you got my full respect to do that. Reggie Miller said it too. He said he was like a vampire, man.
Right. I think those practice sessions were better competition than today's all-star games are.
Oh, absolutely.
The watered down all-star games we get sometimes now. Not just in basketball, in all sports. It happens everywhere.
And didn't he say one of the things he loved about that is he'd learned guys' tendencies? Like he's used
oh my goodness,
film, do a film, but he's also saying, okay, I can also learn how Reggie plays, and I can learn how he played, and I learned it all. It's like he used that almost to his advantage.
Yep.
Like
oh my goodness, yes.
Always, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, you got a chance to see those guys in the summer, see what they're working on. Like, okay, like you said, this is what Reggie does. This is what Chris Mullin does. This is what Karl Malone does. He's just watching all the guys, just evaluating them, see, okay, this is what I need to work on for the off season to be ready for these guys. Okay.
Studying, always studying, being prepared.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
one
absolutely.
last topic to finish out our chats here. So we also get to see in this episode a little bit of more of that Olympics talk. So Fred, you mentioned Adidas earlier. So I thought it was funny how Jordan sort of says, "Oh, you're making me wear Adidas, right?" No,
I think it was Reebok.
Or was it Reebok?
Was it Reebok?
I don't know. But how he covered his logo
I think
on
it was
his warm-ups with the flag.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's like, no, Nike got me, so
Nobody's gonna
Right.
Right. He's like, when they were talking about how, I don't remember that personally, but when they were talking about how he refused to do it, I'm sitting there thinking, how is he not going to wear it? Like, how is he going to do this? And then it's like,
Right.
oh, genius. You just cover it up with the flag. Who can get mad at you for covering up with the American flag?
Yeah. No, that's true. And honestly, it just shows the respect that he had for the people that he was working with at the time. Like, hey, man, you guys can't let me, I can't wear this. I'm working with, these guys. It's just the respect that he had. The respect that he had for people that he worked with, and it's like, I'm not gonna do that by wearing something else. So, you can't get in trouble by covering up with the American flag, like you said. So, yeah, I feel like he did it. He took the right approach.
It was a genius move, yeah. And then we also see the return of like the Jerry Krause effect. How with Tony, I don't think I've heard Kukoc.
Kukoc, yeah, yep.
Yep. So
great overseas player.
It was like just because Jerry Krause liked him and was kind of like courting him, right?
Right.
They basically said, like, not just Jordan, but everybody basically said, let's go make him look bad to kind of show that, like, no, we're your guys. Like, don't go start plucking this guy. Like, they had a vendetta. They made it a vendetta, right? That was
Kukoc did nothing to deserve it. I mean,
no, he did. He did.
No, he
just came from Europe, man. Like, he just wanted to come to the United States and play basketball. That's it.
Right. Like, it worked out. But I mean, they shut him down for one or two games. I don't remember. I mean, obviously he comes around. It's kind of funny. And then they all end up coming around on it with him later on. But man, it's just another one of those examples of, like, if you piss Jordan off, even if a guy that, like, Tony didn't do anything to piss him off. It was just that Jerry Krause seemed to like him. That was enough to spark, this little vendetta, right?
Yeah, to flame the fuse for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I just thought that was crazy. And then of course they go on and we get to see they didn't harp too much on Dream Team stuff. I guess that's a whole nother story, and there's documentaries made on that. I think there's a 30 for 30 specifically on
On the Dream Team, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, absolutely. It was really good.
Yeah. And then my final note for this episode was 92 finals. They sort of break down the lead up to like the shrug, the make the shot shrug kind of famous Jordan.
Yeah.
I see Chad smiling on that one. We're all smiling. Like, it's just one of those iconic things that there's a couple things I think of when I think of Jordan. It's the shrug after the shot and dunking from the free throw line. I don't know. So I guess my question to each of you then is, to wrap it up, like, what is in your mind when somebody talks about Jordan? Like, what do you first think of?
I think of the shrug, and I also think of the reason behind the shrug, and what kind of led up to that is it was against Clyde Drexler, which was sort of being like, is it Jordan? Is it Drexler? And they said, well, Drexler's a better three-point shooter. And I remember Michael saying, he's a better three-point shooter than I choose to be. That next night was when the shrug happened, when he hit the 6 threes in the first half or whatever. And it was his way of saying, there is no competition. If I want to shoot threes, I'll shoot threes and I'll show you. And to me, it was just whatever Michael decided he was going to be, and nobody was going to be it. And that's what I'll just always, if I need to pass tonight, I'll pass. If I need to play defense tonight, if I need to go to the free throw, whatever I decide that is going to happen is going to happen. And I will win and you will lose. And I'll make sure of it. That's just what I think of when I think of Jordan, and just the legend that he is with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I totally agree with you, man. I think that, when I first think of Jordan, I think of the shrug. I think of his final shot as a Bull. I think of all those. I mean, the shrug, like you said, he's playing against Clyde. And at the time, it was either, Jordan or Clyde. And he took offense to that. He was like, man, look, I don't want to be compared to this guy. He's a good player. Really a good player. I'm my own player. I don't want to be compared to nobody. So, athletes and players, man, we take offense to being compared to somebody else, like, we're playing against. So it's like, okay, I'm going to show these guys. So he did the shrug, and it's like, hey, man, I told you guys, man. Like, hey, I'm just out here just playing the game, and that's it. And, just think about, like you said, man, just his determination to win. Even down to the last shot of his Bulls career, it just shows that his approach to the game was just so serious, and he took a strong approach. And when you think about him, that's what I think about, just his demeanor to the game for sure.
Yeah. So before this series came out, he said, I'm a little worried because I think people aren't going to like me when they see this. And I thought, oh man, what are we going to get to see? But as we're halfway done here, I'm just curious, like, to kind of wrap this up, do you guys, now that you saw it, do you think that? Because I personally don't. Like, I don't think any less of him. I just see, like, more insight into his serious determination and serious. I mean, there's funny stuff too, but, like, I just saw more of what his drivers were. And, yeah, he was a hard ass and not always kind to everybody around him, but that's probably focused. But does seeing this change anything for y'all?
No, it actually creates more respect for him. Just realizing the price to win was so intense. I had no idea that it enveloped him that much. I knew he was big on it, but I didn't know it was like about everything. And so it's almost like just the opposite. I have way more respect for him. And if there was any doubt on who the greatest was, it's no doubt in my mind now.
What about you, Chad? Did it change how you see Jordan?
Oh, no, I totally agree with you, man. Honestly, it made me have even more respect for him because, as a player, everything's not going to be pretty. Everything's not going to be pretty on the court. You're going to have your confrontations with your teammates and things like that. And his teammate said it. He said, man, we were scared of that dude a little bit, man, but, he made us better. He made us better. He pushed us, and, he said it in his own documentary. He said, man, I was going to push guys because I had a high standard. And, as a competitor, man, you want to play with guys like that. Even the confrontations and the fights and the arguments, it's understandable. That's the nature of the sport. But, like you all said, I just feel like my respect level went even higher for him, just watching him with his teammates, and things like that, how he just how he approached the game. You know, he wasn't trying to come in, joke and laugh around. You know, when it's time to be serious, it's serious. You know, you can have fun with the game, but you know, it's all about winning at one. You know, in the game of basketball. So you have to be serious and take that type of approach.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. This got us through halfway, so we'll wrap up our this Hustle and Pro episode before we dive into the last half of the Last Dance episodes. But Chad, thanks again for joining us from Florida.
Absolutely.
I know that you're still there. Hopefully, we will see you back in Frisco in the, I don't know, fall, whenever things are coming back around and you're allowed to show your face here in Frisco again. And
yeah, I know. Yeah.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The NBA and the G League will figure out a way to get us some basketball here in the fall or late or whatever. And Fred, thank you for taking time out of your day to sit with us and chat. So thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Hustle and Pro. Don't forget to subscribe however you listen to your podcast.